All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the 63rd episode of the SparkCast. Joining me today from their new offices is Thomas from Team Dakota.
Hey guys, how you doing?
So, how was the move? Like, you didn't stream to yesterday, did you? Or is it today?
We did not stream, so this is the first stream from the new locale. So yeah, we were not set up or ready to do education stream. We'll be still flying in pretty hot tomorrow, but we do want to do a stream tomorrow. So yeah, so that should be good. We should be on schedule. We don't have like a dedicated stream room anymore, so we have to like pretty much set up, beforehand, and take everything apart afterwards. So that takes extra setup time, and we'll see. But the new location is really great. The food options are a lot better, which is exciting.
Yeah, so for those that didn't know, you guys used to be on a satellite campus, and
We
now,
did, yeah. We weren't on the main, the main Microsoft campus, and now we are.
so the satellite campus did have a free refrigerator full of soda and juice, though. Do you at least
It
get
did.
that now?
Yeah, we definitely still have that.
But yeah, so are you on the same main campus that I visited and had that giant, massive, awesome food court?
Oh, the Commons is what you're
Yeah.
talking about? Like, yeah, the mall. Yeah, so we're on that. Yep. We're really close to the Studio C building-ish area, so that's considered the um what is it? The west. I think it's, yeah, west side of campus. And so it's some of the more recent buildings, I guess I would say, out of all of Microsoft's buildings. But yeah, it's a nice office. It's good stuff.
Well, I was more
It's
interested in
nice.
the food than the office because if I had that food court at my office, I'd be thrilled. My
Yeah,
best
so
option is going across
that's
the
like
street.
walking distance, and we have our own. This building also has its own cafeteria, which is even cooler than I think the one that you saw.
Oh,
Or
really?
well, it's similar to the one. It's not the Commons type. It's the one that we went to, similar to the one that we went to when we ate at Studio H.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, when I can't remember what you ate, but I had the salmon.
Yeah, we had a little lunch in there. So the cool thing with that place was everything was like heavily discounted and it was like cooked to order.
Yeah, so everything's pretty much like at cost for, because it's they're not trying to make money off their employees like running a food business. So everything's like at cost. So I mean, you can get a burger for like $3, that kind of thing. I mean, I got like I mentioned I had a salmon, so I had salmon, like a salmon entree, like dinner plate with like everything, and it was like $6.
And for me personally, my best option is to go across the street to the projects and where there's a Popeyes, and that's the best food available. Because I go to the food courts at Hopkins, it's just cafeteria food, but with the prices of
I
a
mean,
restaurant.
hospitals are not known for their
No, but they have
wonderful
food
cuisine.
courts. So I mean,
Yeah.
they have a Subway there, and they have a Baja Express, but the Express just means it's overcooked in advance.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We don't really have too many Baja. Is it Baja Express or Baja?
Express.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's the same thing as the Baja Fresh, just
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I really like Baja Fresh.
Yeah, this isn't that though. Same
Okay,
company that just they do cook everything in advance and they overcook it in advance.
that's like hilarious almost because yeah, their name like actually implies like it's cooked to order like Baja Fresh, and then there's like the Baja Express, which I
Yeah.
mean it's fast, but it also implies like the opposite of fresh. I don't know. It's kind of funny.
All right, so moving on from Foodcast to SparkCast.
Yeah, I
Um,
do want to clarify one thing. So 24-inch monitor behind me, that's actually a smartphone. No,
he's actually only an
that's
inch
how
tall.
small I am.
Well, now that we've lost about half our viewers talking about food, we'll move on so we can talk about the cool
They
stuff.
had to go grab dinner. Yeah.
Um, the there was a really interesting thread I wanted to bring up and have that be first and foremost on the forums where we was asking if modding would be good for Spark. So, is there any scenarios where you guys could envision having mod support or at least allowing mods to be added?
So that's a really great question. I know there's a lot of creative software out there that is really based on mods, right? And putting the tools out there for people to kind of add. Our game is interesting because it was like specifically made to be a creation engine, and then it is really a pretty closed system, right? Like we control the sharing and all the feeds and all the tool set. And part of that is right. It keeps it seamless and controlled, but then you lose a lot of that flexibility. Modding getting brought into that obviously opens up for a lot of cool things, but there's a lot of questions of our current systems, right? Like when I think modding, like I mean, you think, okay, you mod something really cool, into it. And so I guess we should clarify before I go too far into this. So I think modding in Project Spark can mean different things to different people.
Right.
So
Well,
I
there's
think
different types of
there's
mods.
yeah, so yeah, exactly. So I kind of think of it, there's two different things that I think of. So I think there's like actually modding Spark itself. So that's like I want to change the tool set or create new tools in that tool set. So
Sure.
I think there's that kind of higher level. And then there's like the modding of like content making of like, and then I think a lot of people think of mods that way too, where I want to just bring in my own characters or assets or,
Or edit existing ones.
yeah, exactly. So um, I think out of those two, I mean, they both, you know, definitely create, their own intricacies. I definitely think the route that would happen first, should we go that route to accept it, would be the second route, right? Of bringing at least first allow bringing in like outside content. The tool set and changing that introduces tons of complexities that probably would break down a lot of things that we have in game, right? Like pretty much sharing would be questionable unless people have to go and download like mod packages so it understands what's going on in a shared world. Like more than likely, I see something like uh, almost like Psycho Killer in the community. I know that's like a really approachable, friendly name, but Psycho Killer in the community is working on SparkShare. And I see almost like that would be if there was modded actual content or modded Spark, like it'd have to be something like that. That would have to be a way of sharing things across in a modded tool set. Now, modded content or outside content brought in, that would be easier to manage. It still creates complexities in our system, right? So, right now we allow anybody to remix something, but if I brought in, because you can like go on like 3D assets, right? Like I could actually go to a store on the internet and buy like a 3D asset that I want to like put into a game. Um, but like let's say I do that in projects, and I want to put this in a game in Project Spark, and we have like a tool set to do that. Um, should I do that? Like, do we allow people to remix that world? Because, now there's really like a, paid content in there.
That's
And
true.
also, even if like, I don't even know all the technical hurdles, right? Like the game would still have to understand that asset. Most of our, licensing for assets comes from the cloud and all that. So I don't even, a version of Spark on your computer, that where you modded this into it, it wouldn't necessarily just seamlessly like run on somebody else's computer if you shared that world. Um, but that would be an easier thing for sure to tackle than like modded tool sets of like I want to go build an animation editor that works with all the current existing things in game plus like that gets really complicated. Obviously, that would also be really cool. So for anybody in the community who thinks we're moving really slow on things,
Here, we'll do the
you
work
know,
for you. Pick
yeah,
this, add it to the game. Done.
right. Like I mean, communities are great about that. I mean, and there's no reason why we should, Team Dakota, like that's our number one push is community and being creative and embracing that. So, I mean,
So if somebody
all really
hacked
good things.
today, if somebody hacked Spark and then come up with their own mod to have an animation suite, would you guys say that's cool, or would you say let's get our lawyers first?
Well, I am not a business person or a Microsoft lawyer, so I would say that's pretty cool. That is not me promising or saying nobody would come after you. That is not my call, unfortunately.
But if someone were to be interested in modding, they could like contact you guys first and make sure you guys they have the okay.
I mean, that would start up that would for sure start up a conversation, and we would need to go through like legal and a lot of things like that, right? We talk about going to legal and having to get questions answered by lawyers. It's actually like a real thing. You can't. Um, this is like from my background at the legislature. So you can't give legal advice unless you actually have like passed the bar and you're a certified lawyer. Like you're not supposed to. Like I can't tell you right now like, oh, you can or cannot do this legally because I'm not certified to even give advice. And you shouldn't take my word for it because it actually has no bearing. Um, Only lawyers can actually really advise anybody on anything on those fronts. So
So
yeah.
your wet blanket is basically what you're saying.
When it comes to that kind of stuff, yeah.
So is there a path that you could see where someday in the next, I don't know, 6 months, you guys have an avenue to allow like a dev kit and to have official support for modders to integrate their own content or start even considering working on their own functionality?
I mean, no announcements to make on stream tonight, but that would be really cool.
Okay then.
I mean, I'll leave it at that. That I mean, I think opening the tool set and allowing more specific creation and more tools is always a really good thing for you guys and for us and for everybody. So um, it's not anything like we're against. It's just about balancing it with like the ecosystem that we have and the work that goes into it and all the other priorities.
So Angel Clown brings up a question that I have been harking on forever, which is a mirror tool
For props.
for
So you
props.
can, yeah, you can do that. Nah, I hear you guys loud and clear on that. That would be super awesome. I would love a mirror tool. There's a lot of things I'm just like, man, I wish it was bent this way instead, or those like the inverse, right? Like, or a mirroring tool basically takes all those props that you really don't like that are asymmetrical, and you can make them symmetrical.
Essentially, yeah, because you could have like, if you wanted to have a lotus as your shoulder pad, let's just go with it. Is the first prop I thought of. And you wanted to have the swirl go the same way on both sides, then you would have to flip it. Well, no, it would be fine with. There's another thing I was looking. There's a desert flower that actually curved. It was like a palm of your hand, and it would only look right from one side. Otherwise, it would be closed on one side and then open on the other.
Oh, okay, because it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's weird. But thumb. Just think of the thumb side. Either thumb's on the front or it's in the back. So anyway,
Just
um,
yeah,
so
no, that would be really cool. I'd love it. I'd love to see a mirror tool.
but you guys had already kind of addressed that with some of your newer props anyway, like your dragon wings. You have a left and a right dragon wing.
Yeah, I mean, since there is a lack of one in game, there's definitely some props that we feel like we should create a left and right version, and like the wing is a perfect example.
So one of the other topics that was rather hot over the weekend and early on this week was the uh, ethnic faces thread, part 6 or something like that. And it ended with Raul saying that he was not actually going to be, you guys were not actually going to be directly creating a character creation engine type thing a la Skyrim or some of the other high-end RPGs, but
Yeah,
instead
that's
might have
not on the
other.
radar. I mean, so Raul's post, that thread is definitely like long lasting, and you have to kind of go through it, and some of that going through is probably not that much fun. But so, like on the bottom of like I think page 6, we got Raul to jump in there and kind of give the official TD statement on that and where we see things. Um, I don't really want to comment too much on it because I think um, his wording was like perfect, and I don't want to speak too much for him. But yeah, definitely it's a good post. So I definitely recommend going to check that one out. I don't have it in front of me like verbatim, or else I'd like read it out to you because I think it was pretty eloquent. But yeah,
So
am I making noise?
no, the issue is that the speakers are picking up my voice sometimes, not all the time, just sometimes.
Oh, on mine.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know how to not fix or fix that.
Yeah, I guess in the future, just headset or steal Brian's earphones and then put his
I mean,
actual ears.
maybe I just have you. Okay, let me try to. I'll try to lower you down so you're not as loud. Okay, talk moose.
No, I was just teasing to the people. I was like mouthing as I was talking, but
Oh,
I don't think it's picking up anymore. That's
okay.
good.
All right. Well, I lowered your voice on my computer, so hopefully that keeps it from happening.
All
Cool.
right,
Yeah.
so I lowered my voice. All right.
So yeah, so just on that, yeah, he kind of alludes to, oh my gosh, I'm watching this stream and my face is like really close. Okay, sorry. I get passionate, so I start leaning in. Thank
Uh-huh.
you.
That's exactly what happened, I'm sure.
Yeah. But no, definitely check out his thing. He alluded some really cool things that we're working on. But yeah, so check that out.
And there was one more thread I wanted to pick up on. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Nope. So we'll move on. All right. So
Okay.
to the state of Spark weekly stuff. Title update 16. You guys announced that Conquer is not going to be playable offline, and that's an issue because previously he couldn't be.
Yeah, it's the deal with a lot of people didn't necessarily run into that because they don't ever play not online. But if you were like traveling and wanted to play Spark on that, just keep working on your project while
Or if
you're
you were in a bad
offline, and
country like
yeah.
Greece.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so if you go offline, Conquer stuff would end up disappearing sometimes. You actually pretty frequently, I think most of the time. And that's due to a ratings check that happens with Conquer because he's rated T versus all of the rest of our content is rated E, and so as soon as you went offline, it was like, oh, I don't know what rating you are. Well, I guess I'm gonna take him out and hide it from you, and so now it's smart enough to make sure he stays visible during offline mode, which makes a whole lot of sense.
Indeed. Oh, I remember what the other thread was. We'll get that later. Um, the other one was a really obscure issue with objects of attached objects to animated props disappearing in between test and edit mode. But that just seems like if you know what that's about, then you're glad it's fixed. If you don't know what it's about, then it doesn't matter to you.
That's exactly what that bug is.
So, do we have a timeline for TU16 yet?
um,
Or a better understanding of what's going on behind the scenes or
So
anything?
I think the last word we gave you guys was pretty much we're still shooting for like end of September, and I think we were, really saying we wanted to do that. This might become a September. I don't want it to be a September.
Okay.
um, regardless, regardless, I definitely think you guys will have information. Um, like I think you'll have if we don't have TU16 out in September, I think we'll definitely be at least talking about putting up like the release notes and all that prior. So at least you guys all know what's happening with TU16. So yeah, September, I think that's what we're gonna be going with on this one.
All right.
It's a really big update, so I know it's falling outside of our standard, title updates, but
Is it
there's a lot of
issues
good
with
fixes and cool things coming with it.
is it issues with certification, or is it just that you guys keep adding more to it?
Yeah, no, not certifications, not the problem. I know that has been in the past, um, and I know the community has very closely watched when we go to certification and everything like that. But nope, it's not certification. It's mainly just adding stuff to it.
I guess if you guys have a lot of stuff going into it, so you make sure that all that stuff works. Otherwise, yeah.
Yep, and making sure there's plenty of test time and on those things. So yeah,
So the noxious bog was talked about a few weeks ago, and that's also reliant on TU16.
that's correct.
So instead of just continuing a harp on that, I presume that's why you guys started talking about the dragons as well.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up wanting to talk about Dragon. We felt like we definitely covered not just Bog in pretty good detail. Um, and we didn't want to wait, so long before we started talking about, newer content. We don't want to punish you guys while we're trying to work on this title update. But yeah, that's why we haven't seen Noxious Bog yet, is due to the fact it requires TU16.
So will like Noxious Bog come out like the same day as TU16 or
Not necessarily the same day. I think a lot of times our TUs go out on Tuesday, and then content comes out on Thursday. I mean, we'll see. Depends.
and will the dragon like be a month after Noxious Bog or do you guys have a timeline for the relative packs?
I mean, so you guys have seen a lot of the dragon now. I'm thinking that one. I mean, no promises, but I would expect that pack, because of this whole delay. So like because of the delay, things are kind of getting sandwiched together. So I think it won't be very long from when Noxious Bog comes out for when Dragon comes out. Like I think that'll be a very quick turnaround.
Okay. Well, I'm sure people will be happy about that because they were really excited for dragons. I mean, not that people weren't excited about Noxious Bog, it's just that they're like, oh, this is a really cool biome for a bunch of flora and vegetation and other words that are synonyms. And then the dragon came along like, this is amazing. So it's not that we don't care about the old stuff anymore that you just showed us that we don't have yet. It's just that we want the new stuff that we don't have yet as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm most looking forward to Noxious Bog right now. Like that's like the biome pack I always wanted. I don't know. It's once we've seen it in action, it's like you realize how much of a kind of a gap in the realms offering for biomes that there wasn't this place before. So,
Yeah, I'd
and
always
I
use the
know, and I think
clover.
Noxious Bog makes a very, very good complement with Dragon, since the dragon is from Pike, and that is the name of the Noxious Bog. Like that is actually in our lore. That is the realm, and the dragon comes from that. So they all work together.
I wish you had called it pipe instead of pike,
Call it
because
Pipe.
pipe. Because if you did you ever watch the Adventures of Pete and Pete on
Mm-mm.
Nickelodeon? Well, Artie, the strongest man in the world, he always would yell pipe,
Pipe.
pipe, pipe. Anyway, um, for any of you '90s kids out there, you'll understand.
I mean, I'm a '90s kid. I just didn't watch a lot of Nickelodeon, I guess.
Well, I'm like 10 years older than you, so if I watched it, then means you probably missed it by a couple years.
Yeah. Are you considered a '90s kid? There's no way.
Yeah, I was born in '84, so most of my childhood was in the '90s.
Oh, isn't that okay? I guess. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of old, but yeah, you're like in your high school, and
No,
yeah.
no, no, no. The high school wasn't until I started high school in '99.
Oh, oh, I don't know. And I always thought I'm a '90s kid, but I was born in '92, so
Well, I'm like half '80s, half '90s, whatever.
yeah.
Anyway, Pete and Pete was a great show. So speaking of the younger aged people, there's the Imagine Cup Earth. So what is
Yes,
that, and why is it
wow,
relevant
look
to
at that
Spark?
segue. That was a slam dunk.
Hey, listen, I do this professionally, for fun, amateurly, free. Anyway, go on.
So Imagine Cup Earth. Yes. Okay, so this is the deal. If you're like part of our, core community, which I imagine you are if you're like watching, these Sparkcasts and everything like that. If you're 18 or younger and you're a student, you have to do this competition because you guys already have knowledge of Spark and are pretty comfortable using it. And even if you aren't really, like, you should definitely jump in because you're getting a lot of extra information. But there's this competition and there's three deadlines. So the first one is this December. There's also one at the end of March, and there's also one at the end of June. And you can enter all three of those. And each one of those, there's three prizes to get, and the prizes are really good. So first prize is like $3,000. Second prize is $2,000, and third place is $1,000. And that
You can
happens
do a
at
whole
each
lot.
deadline.
You can do a whole
Huh?
lot in Spark in 3 months.
Yeah. And like this is like there's like a lot of lead time to work on it. I mean, and this is crazy. You can take a project and work on it, and then if you don't win, you can enter it again and like improve upon it for the next round. So you don't even have to abandon your work for the next deadline. The one stipulation is they do have some guidelines what they like to see people like work on. So like you can't just do anything you want with the project. You have to do like So Imagine Cup Earth is a partnership with NASA, and so they have some scenarios like on their website, and they talk about like using NASA data and or I don't know if it's data, but like scenarios, right, to investigate. So and build a game around those things. But there's a lot of flexibility there, by far. Like you can do a lot with what the scenarios that they talked about. So I highly recommend anybody who's 18 or under student to do the Imagine Cup. There's no reason not to, and the prizes are like phenomenal.
And if your parents are an issue, just tell them that it's a NASA-sponsored competition, and then just
Yeah, I mean it's a Imagine Cup is like a huge global competition that they do.
yeah, that'd be nice. I mean, I would have definitely jumped in on this if I was,
Oh, I if I was 16, or if I when Project Spark was around, I would have like done this in a heartbeat.
it,
And for anybody who's like in high school, especially in like your that older group, maybe you're 16, 17, 18, like college is really expensive. And in order to how to pay for it, worked a ton of hours. Like I had like 16-hour days, 17-hour days where you work and you go to school and you do that 5 days in a row,
you
and
don't want
then
to do that.
yeah, you like it kills you. It makes you age extremely. I guess I didn't age too much. I maybe should have done that for more often. But like you don't want to have to do that as much as possible. So any extra money or scholarships or anything like that you can do is really good.
So
And why not do it having fun using Project Spark?
the other boost would be it looks great on your college application to either be a
It
participant
does.
or a winner in a NASA competition.
Yeah, exactly. Like NASA's name carries a lot of weight. So.
And
And
even
Imagine Cup Earth actually does too. I mean, that's one of the main education things that Microsoft does. There's Imagine Cup. Magic Cup Earth is the specific one, but there's like an Imagine Cup other huge competition that they do that involves like programming and robotics and tons of other stuff. And they do like they put the event changes where it is every year, and it's really cool.
and
Highly recommend looking into that too. But the Imagine Cup Earth part is the one where you can actually use Spark, which is awesome.
the real quick aside to that, what I think is going to be paying up front as opposed to getting a loan is a great thing because when you get a loan, that means you have to pay interest on it, and interest is what's going to kill you. And that's why people have like $100,000 of student loan debt after they finish college.
Yeah, I mean, so that here's my suggestion for all our people going into college. So I've gone through this now, and I actually feel like I can impart some advice. Um, Definitely don't go to anything that's going to be outrageously expensive. Like
It's not worth
even
it.
if you think that name like or this like I want to go to this well-known school blah blah is going to be worth it, it's not. Like um I mean, degrees, getting the degree is important, and learning the skills is important. The name that ends up on your resume of like this prestigious place or whatever doesn't really matter. Like state schools, if you're like an in resident, like are really good options usually. Because if you're an in-state resident, and one, you have probably a support system there for you, while you're going through school, so things will already be like a little bit cheaper because you're either around family or friends or what have you. So you have like roommates that you'll actually know. Or and then two, right? They offer usually it's way cheaper. They usually have their out of state students or their international students like subsidizing the education, and they give a special like discount for in state residents. So highly recommend that. That's a good route to go. I still had debt when I left school, but it's about. Geez, I don't know if you guys care about how much debt I have, but I'm like at 20,000, I think now around.
I was lucky and I escaped without any debt. But I went to a small school. Um, it was about 20 students per class. It was also 80% female, so that was something nice.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it used to be an all-female school. Then, like 10 years prior to me going there, they switched to all allowing males in as well. Um, so I was one of three guys in most of my classes, and I was those two other guys weren't also always in there. Anyway, um, the things to look for were like state scholarships. I got a science scholarship that paid for a quarter of my college. The only thing was I had to work 4 years after graduating in a full-time position inside the science field. So that was a pretty.
So how does that work if you don't end up securing a position after you accept the scholarship?
So that was kind of scary. Like I just kept. Honestly, what I did was I kept going to school. So I went to a master's program because I couldn't get a full-time position yet in biology. So I got a scholarship. So I got through a small school for undergrad, and then for my graduate degree, my master's program, I went to Hopkins. So that's where I got um, my name recognition for my diploma. And it's a lot cheaper to get grad degree stuff than it is to get undergrad stuff because grad students only have like 10 classes total before you get a master's program because it's focused. You don't have to do all that liberal arts mumbo jumbo.
Yep, all the degree requirements that are like standard core or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're just focusing on the thing you care about. And even then, only like 3 or 4 of the classes of the 11 that I took were relevant to what I'm doing right now. But
Yep.
um, so I would suggest working working in advance, saving up, and then getting as many scholarships as you can through as many modes as possible. Like look for those things like you're looking for uh, I don't know, the Holy Grail or something. I was going to go something worse
Yeah.
than that, but let's go with the Holy Grail. Um, and keep in mind that that's going to like set you up for the rest of your life, so that you're not continually paying off the interest and you're
Yeah.
working. Uh,
Debt is definitely no fun. I mean, I have a pretty reasonable amount of debt. It's not anything outrageous. I have monthly payments or whatever it is, but I mean, if you can get out without debt, it sets you up to do a lot better. Like that's just extra money you have to start putting toward like a down payment on a house or into your savings or pay off your car or what have you. So that's all good things. So yeah, so save, look for scholarships, and then don't go to an expensive school.
and the last piece of advice I'm going to give before we move on to some more Spark stuff is start saving for retirement early. This goes to you too, actually, because the sooner you start, the more money you can actually gain from it. I think it was Einstein who said compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe.
Yep.
So I wish I had started 2 years or 3 years prior to what I did, because I started my job like in 2010, like soon after the recession
Economic
started,
bubble.
right?
Yeah.
So if I had started like towards the peak of that, well, towards the trowel of that, and then I would have had a lot more revenue generate interest generated on my behalf as opposed to paying somebody else interest. Yeah, so interest is good for you, bad for other people. Bad for you,
Yep.
good for you to earn to yourself, and bad for other people to earn off you.
Yep. So make sure whenever you loan your friend $20, just be like, "Hey, I'm compounding interest on this, so
Well, here's
every
what I do.
day." Huh?
I tell people that they borrow money from me. I'll say, all right, it's 100% interest every day. If you can't afford that, then we'll put you on a payment plan. There's a $50 charge to be put onto a payment plan, and yeah, so it's similar to payday loan scams.
You're right.
So
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so back on to Spark stuff.
Yes. Get me back on topic.
All right. The other topic I wanted to talk about was the games that are made inside of Spark, the length of them specifically, where most people will initially probably intend to make a long game, but then after making all the mechanics, don't really feel like making more than like 5-10 minutes worth of combat content, and plus people are probably not going to play for that much longer anyway.
Hmm.
So is there anything that's so is it worth encouraging longer games, and what can be done to encourage them if so?
Yeah. Man, it's. I think it's something like Spark has always been like just it's like a crux of the Spark experience, like also the creating part of longer experiences and also like the playing of longer experiences. Like those are both things that Spark can do, but I wouldn't say like has done it, especially well, right? So from the creator's perspective, like I'm building a long adventure, right? So the longer you want to make a game, like the more likely you're going to hit the, yep, already you mentioned in chat, like you're going to hit prop limits, terrain limits, or anything like that. Um, and so like, level linking and things like that were introduced. But of course, like the prop limits would help a lot.
So we did have
Granted,
people who did the things like what was it, Find the Forest, where it's dynamic creation and destruction of
Yeah,
objects.
exactly. And and I mean, think of it. I mean, that's just been the trend in the last like 3, 4 years, right? Procedural things is like how you keep the budget of the game really, or when I say budget, right? That's like your prop limit and your things that hurt performance. You can keep that really low if you're smart about how you procedurally create things. So, on screen and what the player's experience is small at the time, but they actually are part of this bigger thing that they, isn't getting build out all at once. And on top of it, right, when you procedurally do something, it's not handcrafted, right, which takes a lot of time and artist effort and things versus like putting it in a calculator and hitting boom, go, and it generates. Um, but yeah, so like longer experiences, I mean, from the creator point of view, they hit those limits and, it becomes like a huge time investment, right? So usually, like, at least in my experience, right, the longer usually when you have like a long idea, like you also have all these custom mechanics that you want to put into it, and that's where you usually start is like getting all the gameplay stuff foundational, right? And even if so, usually you hit a lot of roadblocks or anything like that as you're working toward that, and that takes longer than you expect. And by the time you get to the finish line on that, and you're happy with the result, which may or might not even be the case, I guarantee probably that's where most projects go to die, right? Because we all start things and they quickly burn out if you
Hmm.
hit that roadblock and you go and do something else.
It's a
So,
lot easier to start a new project than it is to finish an old one.
exactly. So, maybe 10% of projects even get to the point where the creator's like, wow, okay, I like these mechanics. Let's go make a game with them. And this is after they probably already put in 100 hours plus like into their creation.
Yeah,
Depends on the scope, right? But I can easily see how some would be like that.
10 hours on,
Um,
100 hours on mechanics, that seems reasonable with the debugging, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it just, you know, that's the thing. I actually now, like when I go and create things, like I am almost always doing debugging. I'm building a debugger as I'm building the other code, so I can like I already know that I'm going to like hit things, and I want to immediately be able to know where I'm wrong, or else I get frustrated. So like I build debuggers now, and it's pretty easy to do so. So I just build it along with the rest of my game and actually plan it out. So that actually helps a lot. Um, that's
Have
kind
you
of
been showing
the
that on the tutorial streams? How to do that sort of thing?
we have done like a debug education stream once.
Right, but that wasn't that was not what you were talking about at all.
It's not.
It's not.
I mean, what I do, so I mean, it's really simple. So like that's why I don't think it would be like an hour or really fit for a stream. It might just be good for
A
like a
10-minute
YouTube
tutorial.
video. Yeah. But I mean, all I do is it's mainly about like a centralized location that understands where all the variables that you're tracking. Because I mean, variables is where things get sticky, right? And usually things don't get communicated. Um,
Or
you
people
know, that
will put up a really complicated when statement, and they don't actually know what the when statement is doing.
Yeah, so right, code in itself is cause and effect, right? When and do. That's like how everything fires and triggers is conditions and then the result of that condition. So debugging is as simply as like linking all of those together and finding which trigger is not lining up with the next statement to fire off the thing, right? And
As
you
you would
can like
expect it
see
to.
your chain. Huh?
As you would expect it to, because like so
Yeah.
you're when you're writing the code, you think this is going to work. You don't write code thinking this is not going to work. So the
Yep.
problem comes in when people write code they think is going to work and it doesn't work, and they won't check that because they think I did that part right.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. I mean, that's the whole. You're sitting there. You're like, this should work. I mean, me and Brian right now are working on a level together actually, and we're independently kind of doing our things and we're putting them in. And today, I spent like 15 minutes trying to figure out what was wrong with this level, and it ended up being when Brian came in, he switched our player variable. I was using a player lowercase variable, like player with a low p, and then he came in and made it a p with a capital, and all the code in all my other brains was relying on a lowercase p, and it broke everything. And I was like, and I built my debugger, and I was like, this should be working. What is wrong? And I was like, but I realized that all of my win condition, like all my triggers were not firing between all these different things. And I was like, the only thing that even is setting these up is it was like a trigger box detecting the global player or whatever. And immediately I was like, okay, so it's something commonality between all of these different things, and that is like how it pointed me to it must be the player. Um, but there you go, right? Like we still hit these things, especially when you're collaborating. And it's
Right.
even worse because there's more than one person on the project. Um, so think about like a professional development team, right? When there's like 100 people working on a game. Think about how crazy that is. To try to, it's like insane
And not
trying
only
to
that,
keep
but
track.
people trade off on what they're doing. So one person that's working on one thing won't be working
Yep,
on that one asset through the
yep.
start to finish. They'll hand it off to somebody else, somebody else. Point.
Exactly, yeah. And they're like in a system, right, that's been over 3 or 4 years, and so people come on and off the project. It's not like everybody got hired, at the same time. Like people come and go, and it's pretty crazy. Like it's take that to like an extreme level, and that's like that's why these games, game development takes forever.
But yeah,
um,
going back to Spark, I would like to see your technique be like in a 10-minute tutorial or whatever for YouTube, just so I can link that to people when they're saying, I want to know how to do this and this, but one of
Yeah,
this
I
isn't
think good
working.
debugging is like a really important skill. I mean, and it's really simple because so I didn't even really fully explain. So all I do is there's basically an independent logic cube, which is like my debugging, logic cube. And the main reason is one, you want a separate cube because I see a lot of people where they mistakenly put the debug in like the player, and usually in most games, once you're taking it a little bit further, you're gonna want to like have the brain get deactivated at certain points and all that, but you want your debugger to still run, and it just gets tricky. So you want an isolated object that has all your debug information. And then what I do is it's a lot of displaying like pretty much all your custom variables, and I organize it into like folders actually. So I like have debug, and then I'm able to I switch basically pages in that brain, and then the page is based on like a topic, right? So in like my game I'll have a combat subheader, and then I can like page between all of those like combat, health, and then all when I go to that, all the variables and all the events I need to track for that show up. So like combat's an important one, right? Where you can see like I want to know whenever my guy is attacking, or that kind of thing. Or if I just want to always see the position of my character or what have you. That might be a general debug. Um, but I actually page through those different groups, and then I can actually at any moment I can actually toggled them on to. I think that's actually a really important thing, is I can actually like, okay, so this isn't firing, but let me see like when I do fire it, if everything else works correctly. And I can actually by doing the firing, so I can basically take if there's a number variable, I can go in and change the number what I want it to be. If it's a Boolean, I can switch it from true to false. Like I can change it in game at that time. And while I'm in play, like it shortens up the testing because I can immediately see what's wrong or not a lot of times by doing that. So I have this whole little system.
Well, it seems like it would be a good system to explain to other
Yeah, I
people
mean,
in more
it
depth.
takes time. Like that's the other thing. It's another complexity you add to your game. But any long experience it's totally worth it. Even if the debugger takes 20 hours of your time to build, it'll make the other 100 hours you put in so much nicer and less headache
Much more
inducing.
productive too.
Yeah, it really does. And it forces you to be organized. That I think that's the other really important thing. You have to think about it almost like on paper. Um, so yeah,
So
really
we,
important. So long games is the actual topic,
yes.
which we still have barely talked about. So yeah, so being a creator, so you get to that point where you finally got your mechanics right, and then now you're expected to actually make content right into a full experience. And usually what happens is you're so burnt out for how much time you spend on the mechanics that if you make a game at all at that point, you make like a 5 to 10 minute experience because you
Hmm.
want to like it's almost you do a tech demo and like proof of concept, and you may or may not actually art up your world even, right? Like you put it out there and you want to get like good feedback. And usually, right, just because of different people's time investments and stuff, like usually that we're Team Dakota is just really impressed by the mechanics, and we end up like featuring it or putting in starter kit feed or what have you. Um, and then I think creators sometimes after that happens, they're like, "Well, was already featured. I don't know why I need to do anything else with this." So I think that happens actually.
Some
Um,
extent, yes.
Yeah, which that may be our fault for disincentivizing that behavior, but there's actually no reason why we wouldn't continue featuring stuff.
You
Like,
guys did with Dark Minds, like that thing that was featured like
yeah,
3 times, wasn't
yeah.
it?
I think that's why that ended up being the game of the year for 2014, is it really showed persistence and how it pays off and how it can make lead to a really full experience, all the way from good mechanics to a full story. And that's why I think it was like the perfect one to choose for that. When I totally agreed with that choice, and I wasn't even on the team like at that point. Like I don't know, maybe their thinking was different, but I loved how that was the number one for
That was
2014.
their explanation as well.
Got it.
So my general thought process is there's 2 different types of creators. It's not just creators in general. There's
Hmm.
programmers and there's designers.
Yep.
And the best uh, collaboration is when the programmer is working with the designer. So the programmer starts making out all the mechanics, stuff like that, with the content in mind, but not actually building the content. And then when that guy finally gets tired of doing it and just says, "All right, I'm done with this. I've done everything I want to do. Is there anything?" He asks the person, "Is there anything else you want me to add before I'm just walking away from this?" And
Hmm.
then either do finishing touches or wrap it up there, pass it on to the other person, who then makes a longer game out of it. That is
Yeah.
how uh, the collaborations I've worked on have actually gone through, for the most part. The Conqueror's Defense one was a bit different because that was mostly tech work and then a little bit of a because that was almost procedural in a way. Whereas Space Gunk and Gradius Fox could have gone for much longer if I personally wanted to work on the project more. But
Hmm.
um, I could have made several different levels, like several different variations. Heck, I redesigned Gradius Fox like 3 times, so I could have, in theory, had 6 different levels, but I ended up with just 2 that I redid over and over again. So how people can make longer games is working together, having one person work until they're tired of it, and then pass it off, and actually, being willing to explain things because there is no code comments.
Yeah. I mean, I think even code comments, they'd help to like an extent, right? But like, I mean, somebody gave me a sheet of C sharp or C plus plus code, right? Like, okay, sure, there's comments in there, but it would take me still a really long time to figure out. So, I mean, I definitely would help. So yeah, I'd love to see code comments too. There's no question. That's just a random thing I wanted to throw in there. But yeah, like I think collaboration is really important to see get those longer projects to the finish line. And like, right, it's motivating to people are bouncing back and it's motivating to each other to see other people's work. And right, the programmer gets really excited by seeing what the content's coming down and is inspired by it. And the same thing, the mechanics come from the programmer, and the designer is like, oh, I can't wait to do something with this, or turn it actually into a playable experience. um, and that is, I think, that kind of bounce back and forth is like what gets a game to the finish line for sure. So my suggestion is definitely collaborate more because it's pretty awesome, like in and it doesn't have to be as with our system. I get like it's if you're not on Xbox you can't do like simultaneous or whatever, but like kind of 2 week deadlines or something, right? Like I get the level for 2 weeks, then you get the level for 2 weeks, or and it's a kind of not a tedious like passing back at the end of every single night. Like, and I don't necessarily think that's super helpful either for each person because things are changing constantly, so half the next day is learning what the other person changed
Well,
versus like
that's if both people are programming, whereas if only one person's
yeah.
programming, yeah, then
And
it's
it
not so much a
depends.
problem.
I mean, there's yes, and I do think designers can still have an impact on. I
Oh,
mean, I
sure.
in my mind, a designer still will jump in and do simple code
Yeah,
or standard code to build like the actual gameplay.
but that's
Um,
communicated really quickly over a Skype conversation. Like I'll do it and I'll say, "Oh, I added this to this page and that's it," and
yeah,
then hit that send, and then when he
yeah.
wakes
I mean,
up,
you
he'll
could do it
have
at
it.
a higher frequency to pass back and forth. I'm thinking of a more casual experience where you're not like super concerned about time.
Sure.
Um, you know, but yeah, like so collaboration very important. I think that's how big projects actually get out the door, and how games don't end up dying in your created projects list. um,
So, the question was one of the other questions was how to promote longer games if they're important, and I think they are to some extent. They're not like paramount, like they don't. it's not pivotal that longer games exist, but it's
Yes.
good
I
that they
mean,
do.
yeah, I mean, in fact, right, like I think the actual play experience of Spark is most people aren't looking for a 40, 45, minute adventure or even, I mean, even 20 minutes might be a really long game. I think 20 minutes is fine for a Project Spark game, but um, there's other people I'm sure who'd be like, "Oh man, is this over yet?" Because like, they're like in this mentality of like they want to jump to it's like the YouTube like kind of like I want to go to the next video and like it's kind of this quick pace and they're not a they it's right when I jump on YouTube I'm not expecting to watch something for 2 hours like I am when I go put a Blu-ray into my
Right.
Xbox One and there's just different different expectations
Well, I
so I
guess
think there's
that brings up the point of
yeah
changing things up every once in a while. Like with, I'm just gonna use the most ready example of this I can think of. And that's Invasion 2. We talk about it a
hmm
lot, but every level was different to some extent, so you weren't actually just locking in and saying it's the same level, it's the same level, it's the same level.
Yeah, I mean Invasion 2 did a lot right where like and that's why we talk about it all the time why it was awesome. Is because it kept you interested as levels continue to change and it wasn't like and there was even it I'm gonna sneeze. Ugh. Wait, I'm probably gonna have one more. Maybe not. Okay.
Because in
I
it,
feel like I kind of have another one, so apologize if
it's
I
locked and
sneeze.
loaded. It'll be there later.
Yeah, that's like how it feels right now. So I'm like probably super uncomfortable. I have like a sneeze.
But you can press the Vilmer
Anyway,
at the bottom of
yeah.
your
So like
nose, whatever.
intro as the level progresses, like really good game design, right? And pretty much every game that's a triple A title, you can pretty much find a parallel. Is like they introduce concepts over a period of time and introduce new mechanics, right? They don't
Portal.
overwhelm the player at the beginning, and then they do it in like cool new ways, right? Usually it's like you get a new upgrade, and now you can do this cool thing and fight a boss in this new way, and it kind of ramps up and keeps going and going and and the situations get more and more interesting so it holds it but you're not scaring off away the new player and you're significantly creating tension and interest as the length happens and it's more important to keep doing that as the length goes longer and longer um,
So
with
at
like
first,
really long games, right? When you're thinking like Witcher 3 or like Dragon Age Inquisition, like it's even harder, right? When you think, how do I captivate a player in the same game for over, 200 hours or 150 hours? I mean, think about Project Spark. We have that same thing, right? We want to keep people interested after they've spent so long in create. And I mean, we're a unique case because it's like a lot about user creation, but we still are, the content chain and all that kind of stuff too. So,
So I guess it really comes down to first you need a hook, a reason for the person to even play the game
yeah,
or
yeah.
play it for more than the 2 minutes anyway. And then you have to keep evolving the game over time to maintain their interest. Whether it be something like uh, how long is Portal anyway? I can't even remember at this point. But Portal was 80% tutorial. It kept
Yeah.
introducing new concepts
hmm
and new puzzles and ways to solve them.
I mean, it was like I think it's 19 or 18 stages, and it each one introduces you to it having to use your, do something new, basically.
So that's like a model to follow. Not so much 18 or 19 levels, just that new stuff keeps you interested.
hmm
Even if we were to think about Candy Crush, as much as I don't want to mention that in a positive light, because of the monetization, which was painful. Where, yeah, anyway, we'll leave that to extra credits to talk about. Um, the every so many levels, it would come up with a new concept, and just when you're thinking, oh, they can't possibly add another one, they add, the rectangular shaped chocolate that sparkles, and then it does something different that it had never been exposed before. So just something to keep it interesting, and then revisit that concept every few levels. It doesn't have to be every level that you show it from then on. Just
Yeah, one thing that I get really annoyed about in games, not like necessarily Project Spark games, but games in general, is I hate when like a concept gets introduced and it's like never used again. There's like no payoff, right?
well,
So
either
there's
never
like
used
build.
again or used every time it's possible. Then after.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah. I mean yeah, right. I mean it depends, right? Like there's a difference between like a jump mechanic and then like that will just be used throughout the game
Mhm.
versus like introducing I don't know. I'm
Well,
trying to think of I don't want I'm trying to
well,
think of a
like a
game.
long jump mechanic.
Yeah.
So, like in Super Meat Boy, you learn a long jump mechanic by pressing and holding the button. But
Hmm.
then a few levels later, it reinforces it by making you use that mechanic again. Not too long after that you've forgotten it, but not immediately after, and not
Hmm.
every single level requires the long jump.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I just played a game where I was kind of irritated because it was like they introduce you to something and then it like is never used again.
I remember
Uh,
there were, like early beta, there were some people that like made a really cool tutorial and then a really bland level afterwards. So the tutorial was more interesting than the level afterwards because none of the stuff that was used in the tutorial actually
mhm.
made it through to the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that ends up happening in Project Spark because it's about length of time, like putting it. So I think Project Spark is really, because of the expectation that games are played for 5 minutes or what have you, stuff is really front loaded, and then it, you know, pretty much is like exponentially goes down the longer you play it or what have you kind of thing. Like, or usually the effort, right? It's usually like really good impression and then as you get going. But I mean, there's always really, there's surprises. That's why I love when I find long games that are high quality, like all the way through the end and we feature them and we make always a big deal about them. Like a longer game that we featured this week is Pointless Skills new one, which is like Shadow of Ifrit. Highly recommend playing through that.
So that brings up another point.
Yeah.
Autosaves. Did you see this guy? So the guy who made that level, he
Mm-hmm.
was relying solely on autosaves to save his progress.
Mm-hmm.
And he went back to check out his old level and edit it just to look at it that he had already uploaded, and he ended up losing a week of saves because his autosave updated when he went into edit mode.
Ugh, I did not
So
see that.
so at least save once a day when you're working on something.
Yeah, I always save on exit is kind of and I always usually will save on exit and update. So I'll do like, if I'm working on whatever, you know, cool ice character, and then I'll do cool ice character point one, and then next day it's ice character point two, and like update that up to my 1.0 release is like, how you kind of track it. Like saying, we do title updates and all that kind of thing. But yeah, like version numbers is really important.
Well, even if it's not version number, you can still just update it, like do a
Yeah,
save,
yeah.
and then it'll
So yes,
create the
I should
previous
say so.
save.
You should at least save, and probably at least save once every session. And I think it's just always good to save on exit. So you make sure you save prior to leaving. Like do a hard save. Don't really on autosave. I like the version number two because I can go through my project list and should I have messed something up or whatever, I can actually see those in the name
Sure.
update. So it's like a progress, right, and it helps me know my place.
So I learned, like back in undergrad, going back to college with the topic, that saving is good because it doesn't cost anything to do, and not saving costs you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I never saved a project that I was working on as a paper, and I printed out the rough draft, and I had to even turn that in to get graded, but I never saved the thing. And at one point, I either accidentally closed the program or my computer crashed, something like that, and I didn't have the text document to continue working on to do the final draft.
So do you have the hard copy that you
I
had that
had
you
the hard
printed?
copy, but it was 10 pages long.
Ooh, that's a lot of retype.
So, and I only had one day to do it.
Sounds
So,
like a long night.
no, luckily I found out that Kinko's has a scanning thing where you could scan in the document and it'll convert it to text.
That's very resourceful. Nicely
So,
done.
um, that's the only way that thing got done, because otherwise there was no chance, none, that I'd be able to type 10 pages and add in the new stuff I needed to. So, um, so yeah, saving is good, people. That's your PSA for the day. The more you know. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Um, and as far as Spark goes, if you want to delete old saves, you can do that as well. And I think the most important thing is to read the warnings that pop up. Like if it says it's going to save over your old project, do you want to do that? Consider the answer might be no.
Yep.
Don't always hit yes or I agree. This isn't an
Yep.
Apple end user agreement posting that you can just skip through.
Yeah, the warnings are there usually for a good reason.
And they're not that long. It's not like you have to read the terms and agreements of accepting or
Yeah, it's usually
rejecting
like a
things.
sentence or two at the most.
Yeah. So saving over is bad, and deleting the entire project is bad. Um, I've gotten to the habit of never deleting a project that was shared, but instead just replacing that level with another shared level. So that way, I don't have a chance of ever accidentally deleting an entire project folder when I just meant to delete the share.
Mm,
So it's just a workaround that makes me feel more comfortable.
gotcha.
And with that, I guess we can talk about what's happening tomorrow, Friday, and Tuesday for
Yeah,
the
we can give
streams.
the little play-by-play. Because yeah, I gotta. This room is gonna be lost to me very soon here, so I need to get moving. Since we don't have a dedicated room anymore. But yeah, so Thursday, so we will be doing a stream. Pay attention though to social media in case something weird happens. Since this is our first time in the new location doing this, um, so be patient. But hopefully everything goes good. We're gonna set up. We have like a whole buffer of time to set up and practice this, but um, we haven't turned on these computers yet, or our stream computers since we moved. So who knows? Maybe we'll have like a hardware failure or something terrible. So, but if everything goes well, we'll do a stream tomorrow. We should be looking at some cool stuff. Trying to think what we're gonna look at in particular, because we've pretty much you guys have seen all of Noxious Bog and all of Dragon. So
Well, there
uh,
was actually some leaked stuff that people pulled up screenshots of from the last
I'm not
stream.
gonna comment on that. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm not gonna comment on that. I remember having those come on stream, and I was like, oh, and yeah, me and Brian were not expecting to see those. But that's another thing. So yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if you guys will see those sooner rather than later or not. We'll see. And then Friday, we'll definitely be doing a Let's Play stream again. So we'll be looking at all the cool new stuff we're checking out. Some of the featured things, maybe some other things too. Then next Tuesday, we actually might not have an education stream next Tuesday, but we'll update you guys on that.
You could at least do your debugging tutorial and post that on YouTube.
Yeah, that might be. We might actually start doing more YouTube focused tutorials rather than live streams, just because the format will make it a little bit more digestible.
Hmm.
But we'll see. It all depends.
And for Friday's stream, what you could do is just have Charles play through that 7 hour game for the leaderboards and to see how that goes.
Oh, you're the puzzle dungeon?
Yeah.
Yeah. That I need to play that game. I really want to play that game. Did I tell you that he played that game?
Yeah, a little bit. I wasn't sure if it was on stream or off though.
Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, he was really close to getting done, and he ended up not wanting to. He couldn't finish it, so he left it up and then came back, and by that point, like for some reason, Project Spark closed or whatever, so he like lost all his progress. But he got to like level 23 or 24, which is pretty good. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard, which is really exciting. I think it's really cool that like I think some of the challenges in it are probably seem a little unfair, but like he got to like level 23 or 24, and it takes a lot of effort. I
Well,
really want
speaking
to
of
play that.
taking a lot of effort, we appreciate your time here and we appreciate everybody's interactivity in chat. It was good to see you all.
Yeah, the chat was really active. I was trying to read everything, but I'm sure I didn't keep up with it. But
We actually had a surprising amount of content to talk about today. I was surprised we made it to the full hour. But the thing I would like to say is thank you for your time, and we will see you all next week. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about.
yep, as always, cool. All right, see you guys.
Night, guys.